Let's learn about what the great Italian intellectual Pasolini described as an anthropological miracle and what I believe successful integration looks like. It's time to learn about the Arbëreshë. Who are they? To put it simply, they are Albanians who have lived in Italy since the 15th century, where they have managed to preserve our language and culture while embracing Italy and the Italian culture too. They've even promoted the unification of all Albanians and the unification of all Italians too. They were integral in two of those movements. Very important. But first things first, why are they called Arbëresh instead of Albanian? Well, once upon a time, we Albanians called our country Arbëri or Arbeni and referred to ourselves as Arbëresh, actually up until the terms Shqipëria and Shqiptare gradually replaced them. That's why you probably know someone with the name Arben, Arbenit, Orbër, etc. We like to preserve our history through our names, which is quite beautiful. But today, the Albanians from Italy are still called Arbëresh and their dialect is called Arbëreshë. Different terms for us derived from our original name too. That's why we're called Arbanose in Croatia and Arvanet in Greece and so on, although we use different names. And from the Arbëresh from Italy, several other communities have also developed and have scattered throughout the world, for example, in North and South America, especially in the US, but you might not know that they're also in Argentina and Chile as well. So let's get back to Italy. You're probably dying to know why they went there of all places and why they stayed for so long. They're still there. It all goes back to the 15th century, actually, when Albanians led by the legendary judge Kastrioti Skanderbeg rebelled against the Ottoman Empire, very successfully at that. After his death, many Albanians had to flee from Ottoman persecution, obviously, and the Kingdom of Naples offered Albanians refuge and land in southern Italy in various places, as you can see up on this map. This is where they live now. This all happened up until the 18th century even. The Arbëresh thought that their presence would be temporary, but unfortunately the Ottoman conquest lasted up until 1912 in Albania. So this meant that in Italy we were free to preserve our language and culture, while back in Albania it was slowly being erased under the oppressive Ottoman rule, which didn't even allow Albanian schools until modern times. But this is also why Albanian nationalism was heavily influenced by the Albanians outside of Albania, but I'll circle back to that. For the weirdos out there, the Turks today are not the same people as the Ottomans back then, so let's move on, please. Today, the Arbëresh are a protected minority and their dialect is protected too under Italian law. Their road signs are bilingual and Albanian is spoken with pride and fluently by all inhabitants, as is the case in this beautiful city. Just watch this great video. There are also plenty of these videos on YouTube, so go check them out after. So when I say preserved our language, I mean our language from Judge Kastriotis' time. This means that when a modern Albanian like me hears Arbëresht, it is similar to when a modern English speaker hears Shakespearean English. It is so interesting and fascinating, especially to students of the modern Albanian language, as it represents the sounds, the grammar, the vocabulary of pre-Ottoman Albania. So basically what we might have sounded like today if the Ottomans had never conquered us. So this is just super fascinating and it warms my heart and soul every time I hear it. It is, however, in danger of going extinct, which is why it is so important that we encourage the Arbëresh to keep it alive and try to speak it ourselves as well, why not? The Arbëresh were also among the main drivers of the Albanian national awakening, Rilindja Kombëtare, but there have also been several Italian intellectuals who were actually Arbëresh and contributed to the unification of Italians, the most famous among them being Antonio Gramsci. The Arbëresh are proud of being Albanian, but they are just as proud of being a part of the Italian community too. This is what I mean by successful integration. We could all learn from that. Successful that Pope Francis, when they were celebrating the 550th anniversary of the death of Skanderbeg, held a special court hearing dedicated to the representation of the Albanian community in Italy. As I promised, I'll circle back. The idea of liberating and uniting Albanians by emphasizing our culture and language and overcoming religious divide was largely coined through massive influence from the Arbëresh, who accompanied Albania's path to freedom up until our very Declaration of Independence in 1912. Arbëreshë literature was the only unbroken continuation of Albanian literature, because the Italians at that time were not obsessed with suppressing our language as somebody else was. Many Arbëreshë authors, like the famous Tirada, contributed to the Rilindja in many ways. Tirada collected Albanian folklore, wrote Albanian poems, and published the first Albanian newspaper in Italy, L'Albarese d'Italia, in 1848. In 1883, he published another newspaper, Flamuri I Orbrit, in English, Flag of Albania. This one was censored in the Ottoman Empire as well. His work significantly contributed to an Albanian national consciousness and awareness of history, and included literature about the medieval Albanian uprising against the Ottomans under Skanderbeg, as well as the history of Albanian nobles such as the Dukagjini family. Another super cool thing is that his work wasn't religious, even though he himself was Catholic, as most Arbëreshë are. The Arbëreshë, just like all Albanians today, have no valid reason to feel separated from us over religion. Quite the opposite, actually. The only real separation between Albanians due to religion happened due to the anti-religious communist regime. It was followed by many Albanian refugees, Muslims, Christians, atheists, and so on, who settled in Arbëreshë villages in the 90s and who were taken in by the Arbëreshë with open arms, despite the bad image Albanian migrants had in the 1990s in Italy. That's because the bond connecting us Albanians goes beyond religion. It is rooted in our common ethnicity, history, language, and culture. That's what I keep trying to teach everybody. I really love this part of our history, and I think that everyone in the world could benefit from learning about the Arbëreshë, who have maintained their core identity while embracing and contributing to the country they live in. We could all learn a lot from that. I hope you learned something today as well.